Serious, what are some of the creepiest declassified documents made available to the public? Jeffrey Dahmer's full confession, a couple of 100 pages of pure madness. Necrophilia, dismemberment, skinning, lobotomy, body part preservation, cannibalism. Dahmer became pretty close to his interrogating detectives, Dennis Murphy and Patrick Kennedy, and provided a lot of detail to them. A lot of it in a pretty candid, offhand manner. It's incredibly hard to find Dahmer's confession online without it being behind a paywall, but it is in the public domain, so I've provided link to the PDF downloads. The first 63 pages are mainly forms and letters, the real meat of the confession starts afterwards. Part 1, Part 2. Operation Northwoods. N.wikipedia.org. Basically, the US government was going to carry out attacks its own people, as well as other military targets, and blame it on the Cuban government, so that the US would have a justified reason for going to war with Cuba. The plan involved blowing up US ships and even inciting acts of terrorism on the streets of America, killing civilians. It was backed by the DoD and Joint Chiefs of Staff. Thankfully, John Kennedy vetoed the idea. According to Adam Walensky, JFK's speechwriter and friend at the time, JFK left the meeting and said, "And we call ourselves the human race." Edit, changed RFK to JFK, because I'm a dumbass. Also, I get it, dudes. 9/11 was an inside job. After the My Lai massacre, killing of around 400 to 500 innocent civilians in Vietnam after an army troop killed an entire village, the US government established a group to investigate other war crimes like this occurring in Vietnam, the Vietnam War Crimes Working Group. They found 28 massacres of equal or greater magnitude than My Lai that the public was unaware of, so literally thousands of innocent people killed by US soldiers. The information has since been reclassified, but there were several journal articles on it when it was first released. Not sure if it's creepy, but certainly disturbing. Edit, here's a link to an article about it by the Law Times from when it was originally declassified if anyone is interested. lawtimes.com. I remembered the details wrong, it was 7 larger scale massacres, and 203 reported events of war crimes, murder of civilians, torture, etc. The article goes into more detail. The officer, William Calley, responsible for My Lai had a sentence of only 3 years for murdering over 20 people. He's still alive today. It's ducked. He was actually a hero in the eyes of the American public at the time. Jimmy Carter even led a campaign to pardon Calley. Contrarily, Hugh Thompson, the helicopter pilot who essentially ended the incident, was demonized for years after. Not sure if it's declassified, but the case of Hisashi Aochi. He was a Japanese nuclear plant worker who was exposed to a lot of radiation which left him looking like a Fallout ghoul. They kept him alive for 3 months even though he was in a lot of pain. His heart even stopped 3 times in an hour, but they kept on resuscitating him. I don't know much about it, but it is interesting to read about. N.wikipedia.org. Methods of reported torture that author Douglas Valentine wrote were used at the interrogation centers included rape, gang rape, rape using eel snakes. Military intelligence officer K. Barton Osborne reports that he witnessed the following use of torture: the use of the insertion of the 6-inch dowel into the canal of one of my detainees' ears, and the tapping through the brain until dead. This one was the worst to me. I just had a whole new nightmare scenario added to the top of my list. Not so much creepy but rather pretty freaking cool in a 50s sci-fi B-movie kind of way. Project 1794, top secret program with the US Air Force working with a Canadian aeronautics company to build a supersonic flying saucer-like aircraft that would be able to simultaneously wage psychological war on our Cold War enemies as well as physical war. It was also designed to be a bomber. The project was scrapped when they figured out that not only would it be too expensive to build enormous flying discs, but also that crafts of that shape were near impossible to fly at supersonic speed. I'm pretty sure a lot of UFO conspiracies were started by their smaller test flight models. Area 51 has something to do with aerospace engineering if I remember correctly. Wouldn't be surprised if they tested some prototypes there. In 1984, a psychic remote viewed the planet Mars for the CIA. In his remote view, he's asked to travel backwards to several points in time in Mars history and several points of interest using coordinates. The psychic ends up describing things like some sort of planetary catastrophe, strange structures, including pyramids, and the strange inhabitants on the Red Planet. Whether you believe in aliens and conspiracy theories or not, it's definitely weird that an official branch of the government has run experiments like these. It was fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape and pillage with the sanction and bidding of the all-highest, George Hunter White, who oversaw drug experiments for the CIA as part of Operation Midnight Climax n.wikipedia.org. This entire page is beyond disturbing, but I find it disturbing beyond words that the government spin teams have managed to associate MKUltra over the years as just being an LSD experiment. Oh yeah, that's where the CIA gave people drugs without them knowing, huh? Kinda glosses over the forced brain melting, child raping, and just general horror that is the reality of the project. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we also know only a tiny portion of what happened? Weren't the vast majority of documents destroyed before it was declassified? Yes, most of the documents were burned upon being requested by a congressional committee that was investigating the project. Of course, no one went to jail over that. MKUltra was pretty ducked up. CIA created mind control program that tried a bunch of different things to control behavior in people. Paid people to be LSD test subjects by picking them off street and paying them in cocaine just to leave for them dead after, among other stuff. Unabomber was a test subject, and it fucked him up and led to him killing people. Also, the author of One Flight Over the Cuckoo's Nest was a test subject. Not exactly creepy, but operation to success, the CIA-backed coup in Guatemala at the behest of the United Fruit Company and a State Department. The official CIA history of the operation is truly one of the most ducked up things I've ever read. It was also the blueprint for the Bay of Pigs and other CIA interventions around the world. Not really classified, but very creepy. The business plot of 1933, the wealthiest businessmen of America, like the names you see on banks and buildings in America today, allegedly formed a plot to overthrow President FDR and install a military leader in his place. Their choice was a U.S. Marine general named Smedley Butler, as he was a decorated leader of the highest rank. Butler, a loyal patriot, played along until they were seriously about to attempt to collapse the U.S. economy by holding the financial stability of the country hostage. He rolled on them and testified to Congress about the planned coup. No one was prosecuted. General Smedley Butler may be the reason the world does not, officially, have a society like the United Corporations of Rockefeller, Morgan and Chase. Source: had an activist U.S. government professor. Unit 731 is completely ducked. One of the most interesting points is that the US gave them full immunity in exchange for their data. Imagine committing the most horrible war crimes of the century and get away without repercussion because you can sell your results. Not really creepy but more weird, the Pentagon commissioned an initiative called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, and they recently just released footage of us military aircraft approaching these advanced aerospace threats. I mean, what the hell are these guys doing? A man named Joseph McMoneagle claimed he had the unusual talent known as remote viewing, where he had the ability to see the world through another person's eyes at any physical place, and any place in time. The CIA ran a test on him in 1984 where they tried to discredit his ability. They gave him a piece of paper with coordinates and a date and time written on it, and told him to tell them what he saw. The catch was the coordinates were on Mars and the date was 1,000,000 years in the past. However, to their surprise, when McMoneagle began to describe what he saw, he described an unfamiliar landscape, and said that he viewed a civilization in dire state. He then went on to describe complex infrastructure spanning the strange landscape, such as roads, aqueducts, channels and pyramids. He described the entities that he saw as tall shadowed figures, and it appeared that their situation was critical, and on the brink of apocalypse. The CIA declassified the entire transcript, which can be read by anyone online. CIA.gov. Did they end up discrediting him with a more realistic test? How about Nixon's undelivered speech announcing that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were stranded alive on the moon with no hope of rescue? Watergate.info. This was made just in case this happened, right? Yeah. I assumed they figured the speech could be adapted to other scenarios, but wanted a starting point prepared ahead of time. Sleep deprivation torture. That shit is fucked. Toybox killer transcripted dude and his wife kidnapped young girls for his sex dungeon and played this tape for them when they woke up, detailing what he was going to do to them, including torture, raped by his dog, and how he doesn't get caught by brainwashing them to forget. Edit: warning, once you read you can never go back. Be prepared to have your soul shaken. I read this about a year ago. I'm still trying to forget it. That dude was ducked. COINTELPRO should be deeply troubling to anyone with a shred of decency. Sweden had a compulsory sterilization program running from 1935 to 1979. It was state-sanctioned and given without consent, sometimes without the people knowing they were being sterilized. The three main reasons for these sterilizations were: 1. Health concerns for the mother. 2. Eugenic, not wanting to pass on mental illnesses or any form of handicap. 3. Social, antisocial people, criminals, drunks, etc. In other words, anyone who didn't conform properly and was considered unfit to raise children.